Welcome to the Project Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Gorey, mom of a sweet baby girl and an ever-evolving entrepreneur. On this show, we will explore the intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. We will share stories of moms just like you and me with the goal of fostering community and comfort in knowing that we are not alone in our experiences. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to ensure you get all the updated episodes and releases. Welcome to today's episode of the Project Mom Podcast. Today's episode is going to function just a little bit differently than other episodes. Joining me today is a close friend of mine, Lauren Gold. She offers coaching from an astrological lens, whether that be in relation to motherhood, career guidance, or personal choices. When it comes to motherhood and friendship, Lauren is my confidant right now. We met when our girls were just about 6 months old at a baby and me class. And you know when you just click with somebody? Well, Lauren's been that integral part of my experience and community as a new mom. What I love about Lauren is that she's not one to shy away from polarizing topics. And I find that regularly we're talking about things in motherhood, careers, entrepreneurship, and things that trouble us and upset us and inspire us. So when I first realized that I wanted to talk about today's topic, I immediately texted her. And I knew that I needed her to weigh in on this with me and that just a solo episode would not do. So without further ado, Lauren, welcome. Thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that introduction. It is true. I think when you really click with someone, you just click, and we've clicked. So I'm honored to be here to talk about anything and everything that you might want to talk about.
Which we may just touch on a little bit of everything and everything today, because that's typically how our conversations go. But yes. I think we can stay on track today. I'm hopeful for us.
Definitely.
So before we dive into the story and the topic, I would love if you could just give the listeners just a little bit of an overview of you, your entrepreneurship journey, your motherhood journey, and kind of where you're at right now.
Sure. Well, my name is Lauren. I currently have been full-time momming for a 2-year-old. My daughter is 2 years old. Prior to that, I've been working in various facets of tech for most of my career, but I am one of those who had trouble coming back from my maternity leave, made an empowered decision, I think, to pause on my traditional career and lean hard into the stay-at-home mom life. Recently, I have felt called to go, I would say, more public or become more official with a side hustle or a passion project that I've always had in my life, which was actually astrology. Since I was in high school and college, I've been reading birth charts for friends, for family, friends of friends, and it's slowly just grown by word of mouth. So currently, I'm actually an astrologer in part-time while also momming, really with the goal of empowering my clients who end up mostly being women, right? Women in their 20s or 30s, women going through transitions or changes to really, own where they are in their lives and lean on me to really help them navigate those changes. So a lot of change, a lot of excitement, but always interesting for sure.
Well, I love that because I think it's such a true testament to just meeting yourself where you're at right now. I mean, when you mentioned it, right, going back to work full time after maternity leave doesn't always look as we expect it to. And there's different priorities, different expectations on ourselves. And I think it's just so honoring of yourself to recognize that and allow yourself to lean into what works for you and your family right now.
Thank you. Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I'm sure we'll touch on this again. I think that I think I've always been a feminist because aren't we all? And I always thought I knew, and I always thought I understood what women really went through until I became a mom myself. I don't think I fully could grasp the gravity or the weight of the responsibility or how changed I would feel by motherhood. And I think walking away from objectively a really good job, was one of the harder choices I've had to make in my life, and then continue to live with that decision for the last couple of years.
Yeah. And I honestly think that's like a perfect segue, because I would be surprised if not, if everyone listening could resonate with that. If, I can imagine that some part of somebody or everybody listening has some experience with that, of making a decision that objectively changes the trajectory of this course that they had set forth for themselves at some given time, right? Choices that they had made. And it's a really beautiful segue into why we're having this conversation today and why I texted you, because just a couple of days ago, I know I mentioned this to you, right? I'm sitting in this coffee shop. I try to take a couple of hours when Olive goes to daycare to sit and, focus on what works for me. And I was journaling, and it was a table of two women next to me. And at the beginning, I was trying really hard not to listen, but at some point you overhear people's conversations, and
that's what you do in a coffee shop.
It is. And I was journaling. So I was kind of like, okay, in and out of my journal session based on, how animated they were in their conversations. And at first I was so thrilled because they were talking about their challenges, just like you and I were just talking about, that some of the frustrations that they had with making different choices in their careers because they became moms, or how to be present with their kids. And it made me really happy, because that is like the motive, or the motivation, I should say, for this podcast, right? It's like, I want to share stories so that women know that they're not alone, right? In a lot of these challenges.
Right.
And I was so thrilled. And then I wanted to cry because as the conversation progressed, there became what felt like more and more judgment on the conversation that they were having. They were sharing anecdotes or stories of other women that they had seen, whether it be on social medias or in their, day-to-day circles or whatnot, of choices that other women made, and chose to add a layer of judgment on that. And some of that was around, they were saying, that they were talking about women who chose to participate in multi-level marketing campaigns, network marketing campaigns. They were talking about women who chose to pause and be full-time stay-at-home, moms, about women, what would happen if they lost their partners? They lost their skill sets. Or they were talking about this woman who was a photographer and was posting her motherhood content on LinkedIn, and they were frustrated because that's not what LinkedIn is for. Motherhood content had no place in the workplace.
And very judgmental.
Felt very judgmental. And
yeah,
I'm fully gutted, because to me, it feels like these women are the problem. They're the secret problem. And it makes me feel almost overwhelmed by, like, how do we make progress with this, right? We know men are the problem to an extent, right? They also know they're the problem, right? A lot of the men that I know that they're part of the problem right now. They're part of a society that they grew up in that taught them certain societal norms and expectations. And they know that they have to step up and show up, and we can ask them to do so in certain ways. But because when women is the problem, makes me overwhelmed in that we don't realize that the things we're talking about are actually causing so much harm in somebody else's individual life.
Right. I think there are a couple of things going on here. I mean, first is, like you sort of hinted at, like the patriarchy, right?
Yeah.
Which is, it's very quick for us to say, oh, men, it's the men. But we as women are often part of the patriarchy too. And I think that's often expressed in this like women versus women behavior. And I do feel like as a collective, or, as a gender, we're not going to be able to advance if there's fighting among us. Right. And so I feel like first and foremost, this like, woman versus woman, or like girl on girl, or working mom versus stay-at-home mom thing, is hugely problematic. I mean, it sounds like these two women are working full time, judging their friend or their friends for choosing to pursue other lines of work or lean into stay-at-home work.
Yes.
and talking behind her back, really passing judgment on those decisions, right?
Yeah. And it also felt a lot like to me that like they were making themselves feel better about their choices. So I found myself like in my journaling session writing like, can I have some compassion for these women? Like this is coming from a lens of themselves, I know, right? Of experiences that they had, whether in their familial units or workplace, expectation, things like that. Like I understand that this is from a lens in which they are coloring it. So my goal is to have compassion for them, but at the same time, how can we just not do that anymore? How can we just not have those conversations and shed light on how harmful that is? Like I think about it, I'm sitting right next to them. They don't know me, right? They don't know me, but their message is actually so potentially harmful to someone in this exact situation. I am a new-ish mom. My daughter's 2, right? The girls are 2. And we talk about this regularly. Like, what is the next best move for me to have financial flexibility or freedom or aspirations? How do I, what does it look like to get additional support? Am I still a good mom? Do I go back to work? Like, I'm very much in that space of navigating new motherhood and business and career. And if I wasn't so, I mean, it still impacts me, but if I wasn't so in tune with trying to understand these women or wanting to talk about it, it could cause a lot of damage to somebody.
Yeah. And I'll admit, I judged too, right?
We do. We all do.
Let's be clear, right? Like I'm
judging them.
Right. But I think I particularly judged before I became a mom. And then I became a mom. And all of my judgments went out the window because I know how hard it can be. I know how hard it's been for me. I know how hard it's been for my friends and my loved ones and the other women and moms in my life, no matter what your chosen path is. And so this idea of judgment, is there only one path? Do our career paths need to look a certain way? No. And I think you're right to assume that those women were maybe coming from a place of self-judgment, because they've certainly not walked in their friends' shoes, right? To be saying the things that they're saying. And I think I can understand that too, maybe like the guilt or projecting of your own insecurities about your choices, and how that might have played out. I mean, it sounds like that women's friends, the ones you overheard, are judging her. Has she lost her ambition, her drive? What about her skills? I could argue that her ambition, her drive, her priorities, her focus, they're all there. It's just, things have shifted at this current juncture in her life. And maybe the path isn't going in a traditional way. I don't know. I think this whole like working mom versus stay-at-home mom thing, this conversation just overall needs to be more supportive. And I think it starts in a place like this, a podcast that's meant for women to be having these conversations. I think the conversation needs to be more supportive, especially because the lines are really blurred now, with the option of part-time work, a part-time nanny, daycares flexing hours, people working from home more, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it just seems like we all need to kind of relax and lean into like compassion for each other, no matter where we are in our career journeys, our life journeys, our motherhood journeys,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so grateful we can have this conversation because it's one, right, just my perspective. And I find that I get very emotionally charged when I get in these situations because I see the disservice that it's doing. But I get to a point where I'm like, I'm so narrowed in on just how frustrated I am with that this is happening that I have a hard time seeing, okay, what do we do? Like, how do we find solution mode? How do we get to a point? And so I love that just having this conversation starts the process because, should I have said something? Should I have like leaned over? Like, it's not my role to like educate these people. And they're like,
right.
potentially harming state, and I was in no state to do that either. But like,
yeah, you could have picked a fight in Starbucks.
I could have picked a fight. Yeah, I could. I mean, I would have had to call you, pick me up from jail, please, Lauren. I got into a fight. Yeah. Can you get Olive from daycare today? I cannot make it. But I mean, like, so what do we? I mean, is there a place for that? Like, to speak up?
I think maybe it starts here. It starts with the friends we already have. I mean, it would have been pretty bold of you to lean over and say, I couldn't help it over here, and I disagree with you completely. But
yeah, I guess I would have come out like that.
I mean, I've struggled with a lot of these concepts. I think it's been easier to talk to friends in my exact stage just by coincidence. I happened to meet you. You also happened to not be working when I met you, and so it was really easy to open up and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Who am I? Who am I without the job title that I worked so hard for, right? Who am I without that salary? What is my value in this world, in my household, in my marriage, if I'm not bringing in significant income? I mean, this American capitalistic society, we place a ton of value on who do you work for, what do you do, and how much do you make, right?
Yeah.
What is my identity, both like as a mom and separate from being a mom? Like, who am I now? And I think it was easier for me, at least in the beginning, to have those conversations with people like you, right, who are doing the exact same thing. And you could say, oh, I can totally relate. And we can lament a bit about the struggles that we're going through. But recently I've been more open, I think, to having conversations about this with my friends who have chosen to go back to full-time work. And it's been really eye-opening for me, because I don't think I realized that they were carrying guilt and struggles of their own as well. Like, while I'm feeling guilty maybe about not bringing in income, or what am I going to do next, or who am I now? They're feeling guilt about, maybe not spending as much time with their kids as they'd like, or they're feeling guilt because they love what they do. And they feel like society's telling them that they need to be caring more about spending time with their kids. Right. And so suddenly I'm like, oh, really? No one has it all. I might miss my salary. Right. But they're worried that they're missing out on memories or something.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where the work starts. Like, when you're like trying to find an action plan here, like maybe it is having uncomfortable conversations with friends who may have made different choices than you. Right.
Yeah. And understand just different perspectives and different challenges that exist.
Yeah.
And I feel like too, like, as you're talking, and you highlighted a lot of the questions that we've talked about many, many times, right? Who am I now? What role do I play? What value do I bring? What worth do I have if I'm not contributing financially? What's my role? And I've done a lot of this too. And I think there's a lot of work that maybe it's also just the internal work that we have to do for ourselves too. Like, I think also, right, I'm also grateful I didn't start that fight in this coffee shop, because, and I owe that, I think, a lot to my ability to reflect. And maybe I was journaling at the exact right time, so I was able just to write some of those frustrations down as I was feeling them, and could reflect on that. What does this bring up for me? What am I feeling in this moment that makes me so angry that these women are talking about that? And it's like, maybe it's just personal work that has to get done too, so we can have our own confidence in ourselves that we're in the right place for us. And if we're not, identify what would work better for us to make some changes, so that we can then have those conversations with our friends and get curious about different perspectives.
Here's the truth for me. I'm questioning my own choices, right? I'm questioning my own choices. I'm questioning my path, while simultaneously being worried about the judgment of others, right? Like, women, we go through enough, right? And everyone seems to have something to say to a woman, to the working mom, the stay-at-home mom, the everything in between mom, the formula mom, the breastfeeding mom, the combo feeding mom, et cetera, et cetera. You might feel guilty for working, or you might feel guilty for not working. It sounds to me like there's going to be guilt and judgment either way, right? So shouldn't we all just feel like empowered to do what works for us and not question, what fits our own lives? I mean, I don't know. And yet we feel judged, right? Or we feel pressured by friends, and even our own friends, right? The women in our lives who claim to be our closest allies, right? And here I just admitted it. I said I was maybe opening up more to friends in my exact life stage because I wasn't necessarily like opening up to my other best friends who made different choices than me.
Who would feel differently. Mm-hmm.
Right. So or have a different perspective. So can we, like, as women, feel empowered in our choices and trust our instincts, really, that we're doing right by ourselves, our families, our children, even our careers, right? Whether we've chosen to take these like purposeful pauses, as I like to say, or stay in the workforce or start our small businesses, et cetera. I mean, don't we just have to own it at some point? Because we're going through enough. We don't need the ladies at Starbucks raining on our parades, or the voices in our heads really veering us off course, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that perspective because yes, I mean, at some point, like, can we just say enough is enough? And I'm just like really fed up with letting other people's perspectives like pivot, make changes in my own life. Like they're not the one that's living my life. So like, let me just do what works for me. And I feel like in simplicity, that's easier said than done, right? There's always a little bit. I always find I have this like gumption when I like remember that. I'm like, yes, I'm going to live by that motto. I've got this. And then like, as time goes on, I like wanes a little bit. And then I have to like remind myself of that, approach to life. I just really hope, because it really is such a bummer that like we have yet to get a buy-in. I mean, we've spent how many decades now, right? Since like the women's movement, like making such strides, and we're way further along than we have been, right? There's been some pretty scary setbacks over the last like year or so, but like
for sure,
how I feel like we're so close yet we're so far in making these like societal changes to a point where women are willing to recognize their role in the stagnation of any movement forward right now, right? Whether it be in the patriarchy or in corporate America, or, I mean, they're all kind of the same, but, like in other facets, like we as individuals can stand up and we can, talk to our friends, but it's like at some point, something's got to give.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think I mentioned this article to you the other day about, or maybe it wasn't an article. It was a blog on Mother Untitled. Love that account.
Yes. Yep.
And it was about pink collar work. These jobs that have been historically very judged, jobs that made less money, like secretarial work, right, or caregiving, and how maybe we need to rethink our perception of these jobs. The version of that today is a mom influencer. This word influencer, and everyone groans, right? But think about these like women online. They've got these sort of part-time jobs or sales jobs or these accounts. Maybe they're doing some paid ads. And we all groan, right? Because we think it's annoying, or we don't value that work somehow. Shouldn't we be, I don't know, applauding women for trying to build businesses or bring in income while also supporting their families? And this like weird influencer space, we all groan, but we also all follow them. We follow them and we send
I'm very much influenced by them.
I'm a hashtag influence, right?
Yeah,
and ultimately these women, what are they doing? This blog post was like, hey, these influencers, they're building community. They're building camaraderie among women. They're creating spaces to educate and empower on top of, yes, making money, right? Through like, let's say Instagram as a platform. Why is there shame in that work? And maybe we need to examine like those, like you mentioned, MLMs or whatever it is, and say, maybe I'm part of that's, to me, it's patriarchal to be judging women for trying to carve a path for themselves while also raising their families. Right.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so interesting. Maybe that's it. We just start reflecting on our own behavior. Because I mean, for a long time, I would not say I was ever like hefty judgmental, like, but I think there were times where I was like, oh, this feels salesy to something that somebody posted on Instagram. And I was like, oh, I can feel that they're trying to get somebody to buy something from them. And, you know, I worked in sales for a long time. Like that was my, granted in corporate tech. So like not really one-to-one, but I worked in, you know, more of the B2B space. But like for me, I really prided myself on like relatability and like not feeling like I'm selling something. And that was my path. So for me, I was like, it felt always just a little bit like a backtrack for women in my role of like, oh, that just like makes us look so sleazy or whatever. Totally different. I recognize now, but it's like, oh, I was a part of the problem then, right? Those moments where I found myself maybe judging her, whoever this person is, when really she was just showing the F up and trying to just do what worked for her that day. And why can't we applaud her? I mean, that takes a lot of guts because there are a lot of people, including women like myself at the time, who were groaning at that type of strategy to flexibility and freedom and best of both worlds, maybe to be with our kids and to be making some money at the same time.
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking about it now too. You know, we groan like, oh, someone's selling me makeup or essential oils or whatever, but someone's buying it, right? So shouldn't we just be supportive? I mean, I'm not going to buy it if I don't want it, but yeah, I should judge her less if it's some creative outlet for her. If you happen to love makeup and you're really passionate about making women feel good about themselves, for example, through beauty, like go for it. Go forth and conquer, right? And those sales skills, like that will help you. I mean, you and I have even talked about this. Like, okay, depending on how many kids you have or the gap in the ages between those kids, at some point, all of your kids are going to go to elementary school, right? And yes, that span, it might not be 0 to 5, but 5 years because you might have some other kids in there. But at some point, all of your kids are going to, you know, be in school. And then what? So, you know, when we talk about like, oh, this shift to becoming a stay-at-home mom, people look at me like I've walked away from my job forever. I've walked away from my career forever and I'm never going back. I'm like, well, maybe this is just my reality right now. And maybe that woman selling makeup online, like maybe that's just what she's doing right now. And in five years, when her kids go off to school, she could then transition into a sales job, a more traditional sales job, that is. Or maybe her makeup business will have evolved so much. I mean, I don't know. So something I talk about in my client sessions, you know, oftentimes women are struggling with this, you know, I don't know if I should go back to work, if I shouldn't. I'm like, just so you know, I know this decision feels really big right now, but no decision that you're making is forever. And all you can do is make the best decision for yourself right now with the information that you have. And I sort of explain, I'm like, okay, you're telling me that you're having 2 kids. At some point they're going to school. You're going to go back. Right. And so if you choose to pause now, or if you choose to stay in, this is all temporary, right? This is all changing.
Yeah. I love that. I think too, and maybe let's talk a little bit about the transferable skill set that you get when you are like even a stay-at-home mom. Like think about all of the badass stuff that you do on a regular basis. Like it's not easy to do what we're doing right now. And I think there's a lot of forgetfulness around and maybe fear, or I don't want to say shame, but like there's fear around, will what I'm doing now translate back into the corporate world, or am I going to be obsolete because my skills in a corporate world haven't continued continuously, like haven't been used continuously in that setting. And I think there's a lot of fear around that. But in reality, there's so much transferable skill set that we learn as stay-at-home moms that can be transferred to that.
Couple of things. I mean, some of the fear is valid. I mean, there are plenty of statistics on what happens when you step away from work and then come back, and how that impacts your hireability, your salary trajectory, your overall, lifetime income, et cetera. We know that. I mean, that is lean in, et cetera. So
Yeah.
some of that fear is valid. But some of it is, I think, how we own our story, how you show up for an interview. If you can own it and say, I took a pause, or, and I mean, with COVID and everything of the past couple of years, we've seen a ton of layoffs, particularly in tech in the last 6-9 months, like a lot of layoffs. How are you going to show up to that next interview? Right. I got laid off 1 month into my maternity leave. I'm hearing stories like that. Right.
Yeah.
And to be able to own the story and say, I took some time to reevaluate what I wanted. I took some time with my family, and every single day I had to, face up to all my stuff. So I make sure I don't bring it into my parenting, project manage an entire household, time management, to get us out the door to our activities or whatever it is, the logistics. I mean, you could go on and on and on. I mean, like this, I'm learning more. I don't know. I've never worked harder. I've never been more passionate. I've never felt more fulfilled by my work. I've never put in more hours, or I've never been so exhausted as I have in my current life stage. And if that's the energy I'm bringing to an interview, hey, I'm proud of how far I've come. Right. Like, I think that's sort of the messaging for someone who maybe takes a break and comes back. But or overall, even if I'm never going back to a traditional, 9-to-5 situation, I don't know. I would say I'm proud of how far I've come. This journey of mine has been so much harder than I ever could have expected. And I would say to anyone out there, like, feeling judged for your choices, I say own it, right? And stick with the people in your life who make you feel supported. And if you're navigating a job hunt at some point, you'll know very quickly, right? If someone respects women and respects families and respects career pauses, right? When you're in that interview process. Don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think, you're like highlighting all these like amazing things that we do. And I also just like think about how much research you've done, Lauren, like on different baby topics and sleep and these vaccines and like this weird like world that we're navigating. Like, I don't know what I would have done without you. Like, you were my rabbit hole. Like, I was like, oh, I trust Lauren. So like, we are so aligned. And you did so much of that research, right? To like, but educate yourself. Like, think about that. Like, I feel like when I was working corporately, not that I like never like was proactive and like, I was constantly learning new things. Like when you're in tech, like things are constantly changing. Like, the algorithms are always updating, whatever. So you always have to like educate yourself and be on the forefront of like different, themes or whatever. But like, I never had to learn something except for like the initial get-go with a company. Like, never had to like be constantly updating my like knowledge repertoire. I'm like, oh my God, my daughter didn't sleep last night. What is going on? Is it sickness? Is it regressions? Is it she's cold? Is it my house is, and then it comes to like, behavioral, right? We're going into toddlerhood and it's like, oh my God, if she screams now at me one more time, like, how do I handle this? I don't want to get upset. Am I going to mess up her brain? Am I going to, make her into something I don't want her to be, scar my child?
Right.
There's all these things that we like take on. So I just want to highlight that too, right? Like, I've never done this type of work. Corporately.
For sure. Right. And isn't that parenthood? Just when you think you've got it figured out, something changes. And I felt like that in my traditional job too. Just when our team found a stride, there was a reorg, right? Or somebody left, or somebody got promoted, or your problems changed, or, new year, new goals. Such is life. Right. And so again, to our point about judgment and like shifting the conversation and recognizing all the hard work that goes into everything. I don't know. But back to the world of influencing, right? And content creation, we feel like it's just like a woman like taking like a cool pic or a video and uploading it. I think that feeds into this like narrative in society of like devaluing work. Ask any person with a social media presence. tons of work that goes into that marketing of that side hustle or that account. Photography, content creation, writing, contracts, negotiations, posting, data, analytics. I mean, it's work. We need to shift our perception of the side hustle, the essential oils business, the podcast, the mom influencer, whatever. I don't know. I mean, we're all working so hard. And that's what I said earlier. I'm like, women, we're going through enough as it is. I just think everyone needs to lean into some compassion.
Yeah, I'm ready to hire some of those people. I'm like, can you create me a marketing strategy? Because I don't have the time or really the desire to like educate myself on that, to like create myself a strategy, right? To crack this like extremely volatile environment. Like I feel like everything's changing. It's always changing. Like I don't have the time or the energy for that. Like I want to lean on my fellow ladies and men. I shouldn't say there aren't any men in that industry, but like who have taken the time to like actually do that work, because it is work. It's a lot of work that I don't want to do.
For sure.
I don't know. I do love these conversations because it makes me feel better that we actually are further along in this than I maybe initially felt when we started this conversation, which is so nice because I'm not as like overwhelmed anymore. Because I want to support my fellow lady, but I don't know. We just have so much more work to do.
Yeah, I think societally we're getting there. And I also like to remember we are one country, right, in the world that's getting there. I think different countries are further ahead and some countries are further behind. I mean, more and more companies we're hearing are in the United States are giving paternity leave, or they're expanding their maternity leave policies. Obviously, you know, the U.S. government, I don't feel supported. You know, I don't think the United States on a whole supports women and families, but we're moving, you know, I think like slowly inching forward. Yeah, I don't know, getting a little off topic there, but
that's what we do. That's like what we
society.
do. Society. I know. Well, I don't know. I just feel like we have some good steps at this point, and I'm always so comforted by just having you to talk to, because I think there's like steps, right? Okay, we know like reflection is so key, right? Personal reflection on where are we coming from in this moment? Like what's making us feel uncomfortable? Are we judging ourselves for something, for judging this other person? Like, and just, I also want to say like being supportive doesn't necessarily mean like you always have to buy, right? Like being supportive can be the like of a post, can be a share of a post to somebody, or it could be a text message to somebody who's going through something similar that at some point you've gone through and you are lending a listening ear, right? Like there's a way to support without even really knowing exactly what you're walking into, without having to do it like financially. I think like a lot of the frustration or worth is placed on that financial piece. Like, am I bringing in enough money? Or the only way to support these people is to give them money, and I don't have a lot of that money. And we get really into this like weird cycle of like finances and money and the worth and the value we place on it in this society. Yes. And we live in a capitalistic country. So unfortunately, it's necessity. But there are so many more ways to support your community around you, but also women who you just come in contact with without having to spend your money. I mean, if you can, great, do it.
I mentioned to you something like I felt, I think particularly in my first year, like postpartum, I felt called to reach out to women more in my like periphery, like as opposed to my really tight knit circle. But, you know, that old friend that I used to know or who I worked with 2 jobs ago or whatever, who kind of posts about their newborn or their struggles, I found myself, maybe it was a little weird, maybe it was a little socially strange, but I found myself like kind of reaching out to people via like Instagram DMs, like after they posted something on their story, or shooting a random text to someone after I heard that they had had a child. And just saying like, hey, how are you doing? I know, I just got through that stage or whatever. My baby's only a few months older than your baby. And I found myself like really gravitating towards those kinds of conversations and being like, how are you doing? In a way that I never would have done right prior to having a child. But suddenly I felt like I was in this world where I just wanted to be understood, and I wanted to make other women feel like understood or heard. And it came up in my client sessions too, with like the astrology thing, which is just these recurring themes like you're talking about, like the infant sleep, or starting to walk, or starting to talk, or starting solids, or coming back from mat leave and being really upset, or struggling to find good care, care providers, daycares, nannies, illnesses, I don't know, just all of these themes. Like, it just seemed like the best way for me to support others was to put out the support that maybe I needed when I was in that given stage, and say like, just so you know, you're not alone. Right. And I ended up having, I think, some really interesting conversations and reconnecting with the peripheral friends, the Fritz, the Edge, in ways that I don't think I ever would have done right prior to this motherhood journey,
Absolutely. I think it's so funny you say that, because as I'm listening to you, it's like there's also something to be said about, for me, there's a fear of being judged by the people that matter the most to me. So like letting the people down that are like my closest inner circle. So like I found a lot of the time I was talking to, so you and I, our friendship was new at the time, right? When our girls were little, we've been through this together. So for me, you were actually one of the like, still like, we hadn't like, when the girls, we first met, right? We weren't like, we clicked, but like took us a little bit of time to like, grow into this friendship, right? It's natural. And I think for a while it was easier for me to share these things with you, A, because you were going through something similar, but B, like you didn't really know my history, right? There wasn't anything for you to like reflect on, like, oh, she's doing worse than she was doing, or better than she was doing, or there was nothing for you to compare it to. So I find that there's like a lot of fear for myself of being judged by the people that know me the best.
Absolutely.
It's actually quite nice to find support on the peripheral, so you can build that confidence in yourself to then share with the people that are closest to you.
For sure. I mean, you just nailed it for me. Why was I confiding in you, right? Who I knew for maybe 2 or 3 months, more than I was confiding in some of my friends who I've known since childhood, since high school, since college. Why? I mean, even, my friends brought up to me recently, like they had no idea. I mean, I spoke about it so casually. They had no idea I was going through what I was going through when I was going through it. I'm like, interesting. And I think you're right. We're afraid. I mean, they're also like mirrors, right? And you're going to go to the people who are going to give you the advice that you want to hear in that moment. I'm like, well, I can't go to them because they're going to give me the tough love or whatever. But it is really interesting to reflect. It is really interesting to look back and say, why was I talking to my friend's old coworker, or my friend of a friend of a friend, right? Instead of like some of my best friends in the world, right? And I'll tell you now, I think back to our original topic, some of that was because some of my best friends were working and they were back to work and I wasn't. And I felt maybe there was a dichotomy there. And now I think that was silly, right? I think we've since had those conversations, and I think the true friends, right, won't judge you. I don't know. I don't know.
I think too, right? There's also, for me, it was a lot of my friends hadn't had children yet. So it was I didn't have people that I incorrectly in my mind, right? This wasn't actually true, but in my mind felt like I didn't have people that I could go and actually share the realities of motherhood for me, because they couldn't relate or would want to try, but would try and solve it. There's just a lot of disconnects for me. And I realize now, right, if I look back on it, like those women know me the best. They don't need to know motherhood, right? They know me very well. So they're able to hold space for me regardless of what I'm going through. And we've, like you said, since had these conversations of, this is why the walls went up for me, because I felt like they couldn't understand, or they felt like they couldn't relate, and they would have judgment on me. And I didn't want to have them have any sort of judgment, or me pass judgment on them on how hard motherhood is in case they wanted to do it.
That's a good point.
Which I also see now is like part of the problem.
Right. It's all so shiny and wonderful with rainbows and unicorns on the motherhood side. So come on over.
Yeah.
But that's not true. That's not true.
It's really hard. There are rainbows and it is shiny a lot of times, but there are also some dark clouds and some thunderstorms and turbulence, and it all leads to greener pastures. But
hope so.
I'm just kidding. We have to tell ourselves that, Lauren.
So I know something that someone said to me in my early postpartum days. I was freaking out. I mean, I was just exhausted and nursing, and I don't know. I didn't, hormonal, whatever it was. And I said to a dear friend of mine, I said, I'm so embarrassed that the things I used to be upset about, like, upset me. Like, I thought those things mattered then. And now I see that they didn't. They felt so small, silly, and insignificant compared to what I was really going through right now. Meaning I was really feeling just like the gravity of motherhood and this identity shift and all of that. And my friend said to me, that's where you're wrong. Those things mattered then because they were happening then. And these things matter now because they're happening now. But the bigger picture is none of it matters and it's all temporary. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I was doing the same thing. 5-10 years ago, my problems felt so big and looming and large because they were my problems that day. And the point my friend was making was the big looming large problems of motherhood and breastfeeding and parenting and postpartum that you're feeling today will also fade. Right. Yes. And one day you'll have the perspective and you'll look back on these things and you'll wonder why you judged yourself so harshly or why you felt so judged by others. And it was, right? Yeah. Such a lesson that everything we're going through is going to fade. Right.
Yes.
It does matter. It does matter. We need to have these conversations. It is important. Your feelings are valued. Your problems or your feelings are valid and your problems are real.
Yes.
And this too shall pass. And I find myself coming back to that theme, right? In some of my astrology sessions, my coaching sessions, which is, you're navigating your 20s and you don't know where to move or what job to take or if this guy is right for you. Yeah, those problems are real. And you're a new mom in your early 30s or whatever it is, debating coming back from mat leave in the job, but you hate it, or not at the job and wishing you were back to work, or navigating your childcare dramas. It's all real. It's all real. And it's also all temporary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the and, right? It's the and that I think we have to remind ourselves of like, if this can be hard and I can be really grateful. Mm-hmm. And these are my problems and those problems are very real for somebody else. So who are we to, judge and say that ours are less than or theirs are less than, because we are very much in these moments of navigating them. It's so true. It's just so true. And in time, you will navigate them because you have no other choice. You will navigate them and you will get on the other side of it.
Right. I am to those women in the coffee shop, right? I am a working mom, right, who feels great about my choices, and my friend is not right now. Or I am a working mom who maybe has my own doubts about my choices, and I can support my friend who's starting her side hustle. whatever it is, I love this concept of the and.
Yeah. It's like, why, like LinkedIn can be a profile for corporate people to meet and network and do their thing. And it can be a beautiful space for people who were a part of that to share their different endeavors.
I did put a full-time parenting break on my LinkedIn. I was talking about this with a friend the other day. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. I mean, I've had this side hustle for a long time, but I didn't technically, go out with it, come public with it until a few months ago. And I said, no, I'm going to be real about this and say, no, from July of 2021 until whenever I did it, I'm going to say that was a full-time parenting break. And I'm going to own that. It's on my resume now, right? It's not going anywhere. And maybe that's what we do, right? We own the resume. We own the parenting pause, and the pause goes there. The pause goes on the resume.
Yeah. And we challenge the judgment.
Yes. Both self-judgment and the judgment of others.
Yes. Good qualifier there. Yeah. Self-judgment and the outside judgment. Exactly. Because it's there. I mean, if we feel the outside judgment, there's internal judgment. That's the reason why we see it, right? There's a level of us already doubting.
And that's why you almost caused a fight in a coffee shop.
That is why. And that is why we were having this conversation, because there's internal judgment and doubt for myself on what these personal choices I made are.
Right.
Thankfully, I reined myself in and I realized that. So we are not talking arrest records.
I'm just kidding. Just for the record, you were never going to do that.
No, maybe 10 years ago. Maybe 10 years ago. Way before you knew me.
You're a mother now.
Yeah. Rein myself in. That's it. Well, I think maybe let's wrap it up there. Lauren, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I think there's so many valuable nuggets in this that my hope is that we've at least opened somebody else's eyes to a different perspective on motherhood and careers and judgment and just how we can move forward and support one another.
Thank you. It was such an honor to be here. I really just appreciate these conversations, and thank you for having them and for putting them out there in the form of this podcast. And I hope we can do this again. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And I will make sure to link all of your social handles too, so people can take a look and interact with you and engage with you and follow along on this new passion project of yours.
Thank you. Yes, you can find me at As Told by Lauren Gold, and we can continue the conversation there. So thank you so much, Emily.
Love it. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please help us out and leave a review wherever you listen, and consider sharing with your friends. If you're interested in learning a bit more about the project or want to share your story, please visit our website linked in our show notes below.